The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and ask Senator Fenton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. It's been moved by Senator Roosevelt, seconded by Senator Sullivan to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We are in executive session. We have one bill left, Senate Bill 275. Before I take any motions, I know that Senator Roosevelt has an amendment she'd like to speak to us about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we had the hearing on this bill, this bill did really two things. One, it created a property tax exemption for preschool, for childcare agencies, let's call them. And two, it removed the requirement that schools have to carve out any space they use if they have a preschool from building aid. So this amendment doesn't touch that building aid part, but I thought that the original language of the bill about the tax exemption was way too broad because it would have applied to for-profit childcare centers and also home-based childcare centers where the family is living in the house most of the time. So this amendment is very restrictive in that it only would apply to not-for-profit childcare agencies that are 501c3s, not any other kind of 501c. And they have to be registered and in good standing with the state. So it's much more restrictive, and I offer it to the committee for consideration. We do know that childcare is an ongoing problem. There just isn't enough of it. Licensed childcare, and probably even unlicensed childcare.
So discussions among the committee. I'll be honest with you, I still have a problem with section 3 of this bill on 25 that extends building aid out to include preschools. I don't know how many other members, as we know, that school building aid is a finite resource, and we struggle with meeting the requirements of the requests we get now, and to turn around and expand this out to include a whole nother grade level that is currently exempted from building aid. Most of the preschools that I'm aware of that are in public school are usually a public-private partnership, that they're using unused space that they basically lease or rent to a private entity or private not-for-profit that would use the unused space and make it usable to bring children there. But to expand the building aid, school building aid, $50 million that we do every year to include preschool, I think just would dilute the process. And so that segment of the existing bill still bothers me. Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know where you're familiar with preschools from, but in Nashua, for example, and possibly in Manchester as well, we do run some public preschool programs. And their first group of students they serve are the kids who have been in early intervention. And then to the extent that there's more space, other children are allowed to apply. It's not in every school, but it's in a few. And Manchester, I don't know if they do that as well. So we don't have any public-private partnerships.
Further discussion?
So our preschools are in public school buildings, so the building aid already would apply. Like this wouldn't be separate funding for them, so it wouldn't apply to them. But as far as this, like, and I appreciate Senator Roosevelt trying to work on this, but reducing it down to the nonprofits, they already get a tax break. So they already have a leg up compared to the competition. So now we're giving them, you know, sort of two. And I'm not going to support it. I'm sorry.
All right. With that being said, any further discussions on the Fenton, you, Senator Murphy, anything? What's that?
I said I agree with your comments, Mr. Chairman. I can't support the bill.
So I'll recognize Senator Murphy for a motion.
I move IQ.
Second.
And second, it's been moved by Senator Murphy and seconded by Senator Sullivan to move ITL on Senate Bill 275. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of ITL say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. 3-2, the motion of ITL passes. I assume there's an objection to consent or not?
I don't know if you want, I mean,
How about we can put it on consent if we're not going to argue on the floor, and then if Senator Waters wants to take it off, they can just pull it off consent. Make a motion for consent. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. It's on consent, and 5-0 vote. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session. Moved by Senator Murphy. I'll take it up. It's been moved by Senator Murphy, seconded by Senator Rosenwald to come out of executive consent. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. We are out of executive session. And we are going to be moving on to our public hearings today. The first order of business today is House Bill 163 relative to state funds. And I recognize the prime sponsor, Representative Olney. Welcome to Ways and Means, Representative Olney.
Representative Susan Almy, City of Lebanon, and I forget what else I'm supposed to say, but I am the prime sponsor of this bill, despite, I forget, I think I was in another committee at the time when this had to be exec, so Dennis put it in for me, the Ways and Means statement. I think you probably all read it. The bill was a collaboration between the Joint Committee and mostly me and the state treasurer and somewhat the state comptroller. The state treasurer is here. It updates the structure of the dedicated funds list in 612. It had become quite confusing with things totally out of place, things not defined well enough. And the treasurer and I spent a lot of time at the end going back and forth about individual items all over the place. And I think that this is enough to hold us for another 15 years. So it's I do not think I will be here at that point. I better not be. That's longer than Norm Major lasted. So, in terms of age. Let me see, was there anything else in here? I think it did change no funds, but it makes it easier to use and expand, and it fixes a broken link, which we hadn't noticed for years. And clarifies the difference between real dedicated funds, the trusts, and the escrows. And I hope you pass it.
You serve, not mistaken, on the
Yes. Yes, I'm on the Joint Committee. Right. And I was reminded 2 days ago by the chair of that committee that I was expected to be here today. So I told him I knew, but.
Sorry, Representative Almy, I think we gave you a copy of an amendment by Senator
Yes.
Pearl. We're not going to exec this bill today.
Thank you.
Is not my intention. I need to vet this.
Oh,
this
you're not
amendment a
going to
little bit.
accept the bill, you might think about the amendment.
Right, so we have
Yes.
time to vet and see what.
Well,
we-
I'd
this
like the
amendment run it by
treasurer to
run
be
it by
able
the,
to say
treasurer,
anything if she wants to
And
about,
so,
that
just to let you
in
know, we're not
particular.
going to be executing it today, that's all. And there's an amendment put in by Senator Pearl on behalf of General Nicolaitis. So
thank you,
with that, seeing them, thank you, Representative Almy.
thank you.
Would you like to? Ava,
I'll
could
leave
you get
it
me
on.
the sign-up sheets? The sign-up sheet? There was none? Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, State Treasurer Monica Mazzapelli. And as Representative Almy mentioned, this was essentially a request from the State Controller, Dana Cole, and myself, just to try to do a little cleanup with the list of dedicated accounts. And so from my perspective, I think the importance of this bill, again, is to make things easier, but really what it does is, again, the cleanup is it adds accounts to the list, essentially, of dedicated accounts that were not included previously. Also clarifies essentially the three buckets that we see in this list: the dedicated funds, trust and custodial accounts, or trust endowment type permanent funds, and then custodial accounts. So with those three buckets, then we reclassified and moved existing accounts around, just because for some, we do maintain separate investment accounts. And for example, for dedicated accounts, we don't. Those are typically kept in pool cash, and those are essentially tracked in the accounting system. But for those that have separate accounts, we had a little bit of a messy setup that did not align with the law. So that's what this does. It aligns with, more clear definitions with what, for example, what a trust and a custodial account is. We do have separate investment accounts for those. So this will allow us to continue with that trend. And I was not quite seeing this coming back in 15 years. My view of this is that if there are new accounts that, for example, we have new escrows that we need to maintain, my intention is to come back and work with the Dedicated Funds Committee to add those accounts in the future, remove those that are not going to be needed. There are some plans to remove some funds, for example. So this is was more in-depth cleanup, but going forward, it should be easier working with Dedicated Funds Committee to maintain this list in a more proper manner that aligns with accounting standards, with our reporting requirements for financial statements, and also what we maintain separate and different investment accounts. It will also help us with doing proper accounting of some of the trust and custodial accounts. One of the initiatives that we have is, unfortunately, we haven't had anything that is a trust and custodial account has been maintained in spreadsheets for the longest time. Our plan is with the conversion of the new financial system there is a module in the financial system that will allow us to do proper accounting of this trust and custodial accounts. So anyway, so this cleanup will help us with all of those various initiatives. And again, I want to thank Representative Almy, Representative Jane again, and Senator Rosenwald, and all members of the Dedicated Funds Committee that were working with us to do this cleanup. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good
Madam
morning.
Treasurer. Have you looked at the amendment?
Very briefly, no, I have to really read it.
Okay. We'd probably appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely.
As I look at it, it says that the fund can be used shall be used to supplement general funds, but there's no mention of funding sources that those might be. And I just wonder if you could, before we exec this bill, give us your point of view.
Absolutely. I will
Thank you.
definitely read it carefully.
So
One of the
Monica-
things that, for example,
So one other again. So again,
Sure.
when you're looking at this,
Yes.
you got a copy of it. One of the things I'm concerned about is the RSA they're inserting this into now that you've kind of redefined where they're all at. So again, make sure if that number is incorrect, it's a 110-8. is the section that Senator Pearl amendment dumps us into. And that may be changed based on
Yes.
this bill. So let's make sure that we get it under the right section. And then I know there's some question on where this money's coming from, because there's no appropriation with this. It just creates an empty fund, is what this does. So,
Right.
so if you could just look at that, I don't anticipate, I'll have Sonia follow up with you and see when you're ready to come back. And you can come back and give us recommendations on what it should look like when we're ready to exec the bill.
Sounds good. I'll be happy to do that. One of the things that we were, Representative me and I discussed, and I think is part of what the committee tries to do, is really include anything that is non-general fund, anything that is a dedicated fund, some other source, be included in that list. So we are seeing some funds that sound like a dedicated fund, but they're not in the list. For example, to us is anything that is non-lapsing, generally continuously appropriated. That sounds to me like a dedicated fund.
Right.
And sometimes we see those in different parts of various laws, but they're not in the list. So we're trying to, again, so that will help us again with the framework and the criteria to see where this fund will fall under. But then that, I guess that will apply to others that may be just sitting in various places that we need to just,
I
and they
understand.
come, when we find them, our plan is to bring them back to this list, that the ongoing list that is, anything that is not general fund should be in this list.
So yeah, just take a look at it and give us
Yep.
the recommendations on, and your thoughts on the amendment. So if we choose to
Sounds
adopt
good.
the amendment, we put it in the right place. So
I'll be happy to.
any other questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you, Monica.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on House Bill 163? Seeing none, Susan, want to come back up? Chair recognizes Representative Almy again.
I just wanted to remind you, there are a number of dedicated funds that are not on this list. Things like Seabrook that were left off the list because they have their own accounting that comes to the legislature. And
I recognize, again, we kind of take a shotgun
I
approach with
didn't
legislation.
mean that
We do it
we
and then
weren't going to do anything. I just meant that we were finished with the
But
structure
this is a
for a
good start.
while.
So
Thanks.
great. Thank you, Representative Almy. And with that, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 163. And if we're on time, we can open House Bill, 591 FN regarding Keno. And do we have a sign up sheet for that one?
Sign the first one and then here's for 591.
Okay.
And then
Fine.
you sign another one and so cross it
Do you want to add Representative Almy to that? Then you can just keep
Okay.
that one. Representative Cole, come on up and introduce your bill and say hello to the committee.
Good morning, Representative Brian Cole from Manchester. Thank you for having me. This is a very simple bill. A lot of times when I'm on the having breakfast on the weekends, I see a lot of people playing Keno and they're wondering why the game isn't running. So I just think it's a good win for the state, put some money in our coffers. They're estimating between 300 and 400,000 in revenue. The bill's only 4 lines long, so pretty straightforward. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank Brian.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Charlie to come up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Charlie McIntyre, Letter Director.
Thanks for coming up, Director McIntyre. So I just have a simple question.
Yeah.
Why are we being so prescriptive in this bill and saying on weekdays it's this? Can't we just say that a licensee may operate keynote games during hours of operation? Whenever they're open, they can do it. Would there be a reason why we wouldn't do that or want to do that?
There's no reason. No, I think this was the incrementalist approach. And certainly, I can tell you that in my experience in Massachusetts, when we opened it up it had been 10 a.m., we moved back to 5 a.m. It was immediate lift. Because there are folks who work a night shift
Right.
who play at 3 a.m. because that's when they get off work. So it would be an increased revenue.
I'm just thinking people driving home, doing that kind of thing, and night shift, evening shift, and everything else.
Exactly. I mean,
Get up
you're
early,
a police
go and get
officer,
the day shift.
you're a police officer, you work, second half and you leave at midnight. So, yeah.
Great. Just want to see if there was any real reason why we're being so
No,
prescriptive.
I mean, certainly every so often will there be downtime for maintenance because running 24 hours in any IT platform is tricky, but
I completely can relate to that as well. So, it's a marketing.
As we've expanded into other kinds of gaming, have you seen any sort of decrease or hit on Keno, or is Keno still trending
Keno is still trending.
up?
Correct. Yeah. Our original estimates were, I think, 48 million. I think last year was 56 million in profit, in gross revenues. It's about 13, 14 million in profitability. So, and we haven't expanded into new communities in a while. Like there's none in Concord, none in Portsmouth, none in Lebanon. I shouldn't say that. Okay, go on. So that would be where the real lift would come from, is if those communities had opened it, because the bars and taverns, like one of our best Keno retailers is in Bow, because Bow approved it. So folks who want to play in Concord drive to Bow.
Oh. Great. Any other discussions for Director McIntyre? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on House Bill 591? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on House Bill 591. I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session, not to take a motion, but to have a discussion. It's been moved by Senator Fenton, seconded by Senator Rosenwald to go into executive session. So I just want to see what the will of the committee is on this bill relative to the amendment. My inclination would just say that a licensee may operate Keno during their hours of operation, rather than be prescriptive of what weekends and weekdays look like or anything else. If you're open and you're licensed to run Keno, you can run Keno. If you're closed, then you're closed.
I support that.
So,
I would support that too. I don't know why, if we're gonna allow it 17 hours a day, why not just go
Right.
24? Can I ask a question, Representative Cole?
sure, come on up. In the executive session, we allow members to ask.
Thank you. Just so I know, was the vote out of the House strong on this? Was it a voice vote? Was it roll call? Do you recall?
This one on consent.
Went all consent.
Yes, this is not an issue.
Thank
So
you.
I completely agree. Just expand it. If you want to expand it all the way, go for it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It was a 16-4 vote in committee, and it was voice voted on the floor.
Okay.
Well, you guys over here, what do you think about just if you're open, you use it, if you're not open, you can't use it?
I have a question of Director McIntyre.
Charlie, come on back up.
Just a question about where Keno is. Is it mostly in bars and restaurants or exclusively in bars and restaurants? Is it in convenience stores?
So the tickets are sold in both places and they're equal number of locations. The vast majority of the sales happen in bars and taverns. And Keno that's sold in convenience stores, there's no monitor. So you're buying a ticket just like you're buying a Powerball ticket. You're literally saying, I'll take the next 10 draws. You'll get 10 draws of tickets. And you can go back home and check on your computer or your phone, like all of our games, to see if you won or not. So the House, when it passed Keno last session for convenience stores, there was a fight over whether there should be a monitor or not in a store. There isn't. So that's the only difference, Senator.
Okay, but it's mostly bars and restaurants.
Correct. Most of the sales, I would say about 90%, is in bars and restaurants that actually serve liquor. And we would suggest incremental growth is more possible at stores than it is in bars and taverns.
So, the bars and restaurants would be sort of self-limiting because mostly they're not open all night.
Correct.
Right, I
Thank
think
you.
that's the intention, right? The intention is if you're open, you can do it, but not everybody's open at 8 a.m.,
So
right?
convenience stores might be open all night
Yeah.
or that diner in Manchester.
Right.
But most places,
Correct. Correct. It's
thank you.
And it's still the case that places with liquor licenses can have Keno, but a diner that doesn't have a liquor license can't have Keno?
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only place we allow are poor locations and convenience stores.
Correct. It's stores that otherwise are licensed to sell lottery tickets, and also all of the charitable gambling locations at Keno as well.
Any further discussion?
I actually have a question for Representative Cole, please. Sorry.
Musical chairs. There are two chairs there. You can just go to the side.
Yeah,
Yes,
Good
Senator.
morning. Thank you for taking my
Morning.
question, Representative. The 4 votes against, do you know what the issue was?
I do not.
Okay, I was just wondering if they wanted it more restrictive or less. That's
No,
my
I
question.
don't know.
All
I
right.
just know it came out, it went on a consent calendar, I made it right through the House.
All right, thank you.
Just-
so with the discussion we just had, I'll draft an amendment that changes this to when the business is open, they can sell. When the business is closed, obviously they don't. And just allow it to be self-limiting as Senator Rosenwald said. They, by their hours of operation, they define when they can buy Keno tickets. Perfect. All right, any further discussion? I see, entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Been moved by Senator Murphy, seconded by Senator Sullivan to come out of executive session. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're out of executive session, and with the business of the day being done, we are adjourned. Yeah,
You could just open it up to all restaurants.
so just.